Hey everyone! You're tuned in to Turkish series Stars, where we bring the most talked about moments to your screen. Settle in, because what you're about to hear has set the entertainment world buzzing. If you enjoy these deep dives into the stories everyone whispers about, hit subscribe and share this video so you never miss a revelation. For months, Baris and Elçin have done everything in their power to keep whatever is happening between them quietly sealed, tucked away behind warm smiles and the old refrain of just friends. Their connection began years ago on the set of Karalık Aşk, where their chemistry didn't simply light up scenes, it etched itself into the memories of millions. But lately, that understated closeness has started to speak louder than their interviews. And last night, a single photo tipped the scales. Elçin posted a delicate arrangement of pristine white orchids, their petals glistening under soft light, on her Instagram story. No names. No tags. Just a short caption that seemed to let the flowers do the talking. But it was the card, half tucked into the bouquet, that sent fans into overdrive. In clean, confident handwriting were the words, "We shine when we're side by side. B.A." A message so simple it felt like a whisper, yet so pointed it echoed across social media within minutes. The internet did what the internet does. Screenshots flew from timeline to timeline. Thousands of likes stacked up in a rush. Everyone began decoding those two letters at the end of the note. B.A. It wasn't subtle. Followers immediately connected them to Baris, and the speculation transformed into certainty in the space of an hour. Some called it a confession, others called it a sweet surprise. All agreed the sentiment was unmistakably romantic. What nudged curiosity into near certainty, however, was the leak that followed. Word emerged, first in whispers, then as full-blown gossip, that the florist who assembled the bouquet had confirmed the order came from Baris himself. Nothing official, nothing on record, nothing anyone could trace cleanly. But insiders are insiders, and the story spread like perfume through a crowded room. The timing felt too perfect to be accidental. Just when Elçin's schedule has been at its most intense, when set calls stretch into the night and early mornings leave little room to breathe, the orchids arrived like a pause button. Friends close to the actress say she was moved in a way she didn't expect. In a private chat, she reportedly said, "It felt so thoughtfully timed, like he knew exactly what I needed without asking." That one line, relayed by those who know her well, says more than any official statement could. Of course, the internet remembers. Not too long ago, Baris and Elçin were spotted together in Paris, slipping between cafes and side streets with the effortlessness of old friends. They didn't pose for the cameras, they didn't announce their whereabouts. But the City of Lights rarely keeps secrets, and that fleeting trip became the seed of 1,000 questions. Was it a reunion? A celebration? Or simply two people carving out time away from the noise? No answers then, only glimpses. And now, these flowers. Comments poured in the moment the orchids made their appearance. "Stop hiding, you're perfect together," wrote one follower. "That note is the softest confession," said another. There were more cautious voices too, suggesting it might be a supportive gesture instead of something more. But the dominant feeling in the air was that something real has either quietly resumed or simply never stopped. Interestingly, Baris has kept a deliberate silence. No posts, no clarifications, no winks for the cameras. Those close to him say this was never about grandstanding. The plan was to lift Elçin's spirits, nothing more, nothing less. A quiet, meaningful gesture meant for one person that accidentally became everyone's favorite talking point. And yet, there is a broader story unfolding. Over and over, fans have said that whatever sits between these two transcends screen magic. They've insisted for years that the tenderness they played so effortlessly in Karalık Aşk had to be rooted in something genuine. Now, with these orchids and that signed card, those whispers have returned with brand new volume. This morning, entertainment pages ran with it. Industry watchers framed the note as a turning point. Is the phrase "we shine when we're side by side" a hint at a love rekindled or confirmation that it never faded? Is this the start of a new chapter, or simply the first page of one we were too shy to read before? Gossip doesn't need certainty to thrive, it only needs a spark. And this spark is blindingly bright. As the photo kept circulating, a familiar narrative re-emerged. The duo who always defined their connection as friendship looked, once again, like something more. Paris sightings resurfaced in conversation. People remembered how their interviews often pivoted away from personal questions with a gentle smile. They remembered that moment after Karalik Ask, when both actors took separate paths professionally but never seemed entirely out of each other's orbit. Behind the scenes, the details align. The florist rumor doesn't stand alone. Sources say the note's wording was considered deliberate. It wasn't over the top, it wasn't cryptic, it was intimate without being invasive, a line only two people needed to fully understand. Even the flowers choose their message: white orchids, symbols of elegance, admiration, and quiet devotion. Not roses with their heavy symbolism, not wildflowers with their carefree spirit, orchids with intention. By late night, entertainment reporters observed a wave of posts praising the gesture itself. Fans wrote about how the note felt like a love story distilled into a sentence. Others joked that the internet had become a detective agency, solving a mystery that wasn't trying very hard to hide. But the thread through every reaction was the same, a feeling that something beautiful was happening, and that the two people at the center of it were finally allowing a sliver of it to be seen. Let's not forget the history that makes this moment resonate. On Karalik Ask, Baris and Elçin crafted a rhythm so intuitive that casual scenes became electric. Their timing, their banter, the way a look could carry a paragraph, it all made the audience feel like they were watching something unrepeatable. That kind of chemistry leaves a mark. It creates expectations, fair or not. And now, with this bouquet and that signature, hope has rushed back into the conversation with open arms. Still, both stars have always placed a boundary between their public and private lives. They've been respectful, careful, and measured. Even the orchid photo felt like a compromise, something shared, but not explained. And that is perhaps why it felt so genuine. Not a press release. Not a coordinated campaign. A moment. A gesture. A note only 2 letters long at the end, and yet a message long enough to fill 1,000 headlines. In the hours that followed, a phrase began to surface across timelines and comment sections, a line people repeated to each other with a smile: "They look luminous together." It wasn't a tag or a slogan, it was a mood. Clips from their scenes reappeared, edited side by side with the image of the orchids, as if fans were stitching together the past and the present into a single, gleaming thread. Industry insiders suggest that if we're waiting for an official confirmation, we might be waiting a while. The move was intentional but personal. Those who know them say this is how they communicate when the noise gets too loud: quietly, thoughtfully, meaningfully. A grand gesture isn't always measured by its scale, sometimes it's measured by how perfectly it lands. One detail has gone under the radar but deserves a closer look: the timing of the post. Elçin shared the photo late in the evening, that liminal hour when work finally loosens its grip. To some, it reads as a private thank you that accidentally turned public. To others, it is a subtle acceptance, an acknowledgement, without words, that the message was received and cherished. And then comes the question that refuses to leave the room: is this a reset, a reunion, or simply a truth stepping into the light? The community of fans, who have waited patiently and not so patiently, have decided their answer. Comments like "you've always been endgame" and "this is the confirmation we needed" have dominated the conversation, while more cautious voices maintain that a note is still just a note. But even they admit, it's a note that feels like a heartbeat. Remember, too, that this isn't the first time the pair has been at the center of a hopeful storm. After the Paris sighting, there were quiet dinners, overlapping friends, and those intriguing overlaps in schedules that made people wonder. Every time, the public narrative tiptoed around certainty. Every time, the two of them handled it with grace. Now, the story has stepped a little closer to the open. What happens next is anyone's guess. Will they be seen together again this week? Will there be another post, another glimpse, another carefully chosen line that says everything without stating it directly? Or will the Orchids remain a single, radiant chapter that tells you precisely what you need to know if you know how to listen? For now, the spotlight rests on that card with 2 letters and a promise tucked inside its ink. We're told that Baris wanted to make sure the flowers arrived at a moment when they would mean the most. We're told that Elçin's response, though private, was full of gratitude and warmth. And we're told, with a confidence that's hard to dismiss, that this was not a one-off impulse but a meaningful step. As the day turned to night and back again, the conversation only grew. Some fans compiled timelines, connecting the Orchids to whispers from set insiders and to those shadowed Paris photographs. Others wrote about how love stories don't always need declarations shouted from rooftops. Sometimes they need a quiet room, a shared glance, and the courage to send flowers when the world is watching. And so, here we are. 2 stars whose names have been tied together for years, a city that once hosted their unguarded smiles, a bouquet that chose the language of elegance, and a note with 2 initials that everyone recognized at once. Whether this is the renewal of a chapter or the gentle acknowledgement of a story that never stopped, the effect is the same. Hearts are racing, timelines are glowing, and the idea that screen magic might live beyond the set feels irresistible. All eyes now turn to Baris Ardak and Elçin Sangu, wondering if the next days will bring another clue. Perhaps a candid photo. Perhaps the ease of their laughter in a place that isn't a set. Perhaps nothing at all, because sometimes the real story prefers to be lived rather than explained. But one thing is certain. The beauty they create together isn't confined to characters or scripts. It feels, in moments like this, unshakably real. They have always chosen grace over spectacle, feeling over noise. And that is why a bouquet of white orchids could do what a dozen headlines could not, invite us to believe. Whatever they choose next, to guard their privacy or to step forward hand in hand, the conversation has turned warm and hopeful. A single note, a simple line, and 2 letters that everyone already knew. The rest, as always, belongs to them. We've reached the end of today's story, but the saga is far from over. If this moved you as much as it moved us, make sure you're subscribed to Turkish series stars and share this video with those who have been rooting for these 2 from the beginning. We'll be here, watching the quiet gestures and the bright moments, ready to tell you when the next page turns.